Hello everyone, and welcome to Writing Complex. My name is Felix, and today we're going to be going over some core character traits and issues with Stella from Helluva Boss. For anyone who is unfamiliar with Helluva Boss, I'm going to be doing a brief rundown of Stella's character. Real quick, before we get into the rest of the video, I want to add a content warning that topics such as abuse and cheating will be mentioned throughout the entirety of this video. So if that's not your particular cup of tea, please feel free to click off this video and go and watch something else. Stella Goetia is a secondary antagonist in Helluva Boss and serves as the spouse of Stolas, a prominent demon king within Hell's hierarchy. While her specific responsibilities within Hell's order remain largely unknown, many fans speculate that she primarily serves as a decorative presence for Stolas. Their marriage was arranged solely to secure an heir to the throne and to have someone by Stolas' side in the throne room. Throughout the series, Stella's involvement in any royal duties or castle affairs have never really been depicted, unlike Stolas, who frequently engages in princely tasks, such as opening portals during the Blood Moon Festival in Wrath, or studying constellations. Stella, however, doesn't do much. We know little to nothing about Stella outside of her being Stolas' wife and her being verbally and possibly physically abusive. She is also the mother of Octavia, but up until this point in the show, we've never actually seen her and her daughter talk, so not much can be presumed about her role as a parental figure in Octavia's life. She is currently a very 2D character, serving little purpose outside of being a bitch and providing Stolas with a reason to cheat.
Cheating implies there was a betrayal. This woman never gave two shits about me or our very much arranged marriage.
This is actually a main part of why I'm making this video in the first place, because Helluva Boss, up until this point, has made almost every female cast member a very dull experience, with them serving to progress their male counterpart forward, or to give their male counterpart a reason to do whatever it is they're doing. As I mentioned previously, not much is known about Stella outside of Stolas, but we can assume a lot of things based on the information we get from her small scenes in Season 1, and what we get from the episodes in Season 2. Stella very obviously came from money, which shows not only in her personality, but also in the first episodes of Season 2, when Stolas' father Paimon announces to Stolas that he will be getting married. We see a brief photo of Stella, who appears to be about the same age as Stolas at the time this episode takes place. The photo of her shows Stella choking one of her dogs in what appears to be a fit of anger, and judging by the fact that there was more than one dog in the photo, it appears that Stella's parents, rather than teach their daughter not to abuse her animals, just supplied her with enough animals so that way if one happened to get hurt, there was another one nearby that she could focus her attention on. This photo, despite not being shown for more than a few frames, does a really good job at explaining part of why Stella is the way she is now, but I'll touch on that later. With the most recent episode of Helluva Boss, Western Energy, we've also been introduced to Stella's older brother, Androlphus, who in the episode is seen trying to talk Stella out of having her husband assassinated so soon so that he and Stella can try and leverage some inheritance. What I mainly want to focus on about this interaction between brother and sister is how Androlphus repeatedly tells Stella that she is dumb and that she is only useful for her looks, stating, "You are so lucky you're attractive," after calling out his sister for not being smart enough to see that she could get more out of her husband's death.
You would...
Laugh?
No, you stupid cow! You did nothing! You're so lucky you're attractive.
You can see that this clearly has an effect on Stella, as she goes from her previously confident and annoying self to a more shy and pouty demeanor. Even if it's just for a split second, it shows that Androlphus' words clearly affect her, and I can only assume that this is not a new dynamic. Stella has probably been talked down to most of her life, and probably not just by her older brother, but that of course is only an assumption. Stella, now that she is married and has a kid, seems to have never matured past the age of 16. Most all of her appearances in Season 1 are her in a fit of rage and throwing things, including servants, out of windows. But during Season 1, we never really learned anything about Stella outside of the fact that she was in an arranged marriage with Stolas, she had a kid with him, and that she'd been cheated on. This led to a lot of the fans of the series latching onto the idea that Stella was not actually as bad of a person as we were making her out to be, and that she was just a hurt woman whose husband had cheated on her with one of Hell's most low-class citizens, and had done so very publicly. The first time we ever see Stella is when Blitz is sneaking out of Stolas' room the morning after their first affair, and in doing so falls off the balcony and right into a tea party that Stella and some of her friends were having. Stella is very clearly shocked to see an imp who at this point still has no pants on falling off of her balcony, and Blitz takes this opportunity to say, "Sorry I fucked your husband," before dashing out of the courtyard.
Sorry, I fucked your husband.
The lack of knowledge on Stella to begin with, coupled with the idea that her husband had done a very horrible thing, made it seem like Stella's character was going to be way more than just the abusive wife and maybe more of a sympathetic villain. But then Season 2 came out, and all of that got thrown out the goddamn window. In Season 2, we learn that Stella is actually just garbage. She has always been a piece of shit, and probably always will be. In the very first episode of Season 2, we see Stella say that she hasn't divorced Stolas yet because she likes to torment him, because she wants him to know that he's ruined his life, and she wants him to see it every morning when he wakes up. This is followed by Stella attempting to hit Stolas. These few moments in the first episode completely recontextualize Stella from being a hurt wife to a petty bitch who just wants to see others suffer. And all of this happens after the scene in which we see Stella talk shit about Stolas to her friends about how he's not good in bed.
No, Stolas is terrible in bed.
This one episode left Stella apologists crying in a corner, because she was no longer a character who could have possibly been better and we just didn't know it yet. She was now confirmed to just be trash. And I have no qualms with Stella being that kind of character. I think she does a great job at being Stolas' excuse to cheat. But that's just it. That is all Stella is. The excuse for Stolas to cheat. My problem with Stella as a character is not her being abusive, but rather her role as what I call the "that is why" character. Specifically for Stella, the "that is why it's okay" aspect. She exists as a justification, an excuse for her husband's terrible behavior. Her purpose is to strip away any complexity from the cheating situation involving Stolas and their arranged marriage. In the first season, I assumed that Stolas, despite being in a difficult situation, still held some responsibility for his actions. He cheated, and I expected the show to acknowledge that. As an audience member, what I wanted was to see the nuances between Stella and Stolas, and to recognize that both of them were flawed individuals. Stella may have been rude and far from perfect, but so was Stolas. The relationship could have been portrayed as two people who never loved each other, despising one another, yet still trying to make it work until Stolas cheated. Stella could have remained a villain, an angry wife who ordered a hit on her husband, without providing Stolas with the excuse of, "but she was worse." Stella's character had the potential to be much more than a convenient justification for Stolas' infidelity. She could have been multidimensional, particularly when considering her backstory. From what we have gathered, Stella grew up in a privileged life, never having to face the challenges of it. Everything was handed to her on a silver platter, and her parents failed to teach her basic human decencies such as treating animals with respect. Such a backstory offers an opportunity for character growth and improvement. Yes, she's a spoiled rich girl who never had to earn anything, but when confronted with being cheated on and losing the fairy tale life and marriage she desires, it could have been a great chance for her to learn the value of hard work. Stella could have struggled to make her daughter's life better, considering the way we see Via feel the impact of her parents' divorce. She could have reflected on her own actions and how they contributed to the affair. She could still seek revenge on her husband and desire his demise, but we could also witness some internal conflict. She could be a villain while also evoking sympathy. Unfortunately, the show disregards these possibilities as it often does with its female characters. That is another aspect that I would like to address in this video. Overall, Stella's character falls down to a female character whose purpose is solely to do one thing for her male counterpart: excuse all of his terrible actions, when she could have been so much more. And that leads me to the biggest criticism I really have of Helluva Boss in general, and that is its treatment of all of its female characters. It appears that Stella is suffering from an issue that most female characters in Helluva Boss have. They only exist to further the character progression of the male characters. Vivzy Pop has stated that Helluva Boss is meant to be a more male-centered show. However, I feel like the way she goes about this should be criticized. There is nothing wrong with wanting a show to be male-driven, but when prominent characters of your cast are female, such as Millie, Luna, and Stella, you are still required to give them some form of substance. yet all three of these ladies have served no purpose outside of their male counterparts. Millie exists only to protect Moxie and to be given badass action scenes. Even in an episode where we were in Millie's hometown and meeting her parents, the entire focus of the episode was about Moxie, not Millie. Luna has had very little purpose outside of progressing Blitz, serving more as a means for him to work through his parental trauma and want to be a good father than to actually be a character of substance. Stella's purpose as a character is to justify why Stolas is cheating and to provide some conflict, yet we know very little about her as a character aside from her bare minimum backstory, and we've never seen her outside of Stolas. She is only present when Stolas is on screen and does not exist outside of him. Just like the other two prominent females in the series, they only exist for the male character that they serve to progress. Luna is the only character so far who has had a small role outside of her male counterpart, with her helping Octavia deal with some of her father's issues. But even then, the focus was related to her relationship and feelings about her adopted father, and not about anything else she likes or does as her own character. Helluva Boss is a great show, and I really like it, but the way it handles its female characters could definitely use some adjustment. Even if it is a male-driven show, I would love to see at least one episode that explores the women to some extent. And it sounds like they're planning on doing that with Millie, as Vivziepop has talked about a Millie-centric episode being in the works, and I can only hope that the rest of the female characters will follow suit. And with that, this has been Writing Complex with Felix. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you soon.